Ignite, sparked by BBB, where conversations are taking place to change the future.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to BBB Sharing. This is Joshua, and today I have Mr. Williams from, tell me again.
AW Masonry Restoration.
Awesome. How are you doing today?
Good. And yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. So tell me a little bit about what you do.
We do a lot of things, various things. We do masonry work and concrete work. I sort of separate myself a little bit from other companies. I do commercial work, not as big as commercial contractors, but I do small commercial work, a lot of residential work. We specialize in restoring stoops, steps, old homes, where brick and mortar need to be matched, things of that nature. We do everything from new stoop and step rebuilds to restoring old stoops and steps, installing windows into homes, retrofitting new windows, doors, things of that nature, pavers, patios, chimneys, fireplaces, pretty much the whole spectrum of masonry and concrete work.
Okay. How long have you guys been doing this for?
I've been doing this type of work for 30 some years. I've been
Wow.
in business for, I believe, 15, 16, somewhere in there.
So did your dad start you on this?
No, when I was growing up, I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, and where this town is located, there's nothing there. And I started growing up, I started working on a sawmill, and one day I was walking home, and a couple guys pulled up and said, "Hey, you interested in packing block and brick?" And I'm like, "Well, how much money you paying?" Because at that time I think 11 years old, working on a sawmill for $3 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys offered me $7 an hour. And I was like, yeah, how soon can we start? He said, "You start tomorrow." And I said, "Well, can you pick me up?" And he said, yeah. So I started off at a young age as just as a laborer, packing block and brick and things of that nature. And then, by the time I was 15, 16 years old, I started laying brick and block and starting to finish concrete.
I think just for that job, you have to really keep up with your health.
Yeah, and it's hard on your body. That was when I was 11 years old. I'm now 49 years old. And back when I was younger, of course, I didn't listen to what I was told.
Who
And,
does?
and yeah, and I wish I would have now, because now that I've gotten older, I'm having a lot of problems
Yeah.
with arthritis in my hands, my arms, my neck.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very detrimental to your body. It's definitely a young man's game. The older you get, you don't see too many masons walking around in their 70s and 80s. If you do, they're all clammed up with arthritis so bad. It's a very tough business.
Wow. How
Yeah.
is the hiring area in your industry?
Well, back years ago, it has changed a lot. It's very difficult to find somebody that wants to work nowadays. I mean, I'm sure everybody hears the same thing. It's hard to find dependable help, people that you can trust, things of that nature. And at one point in time, I had 10, 12 employees. And then it got to be too stressful for me. And then I got rid of everybody, and I just started working with myself, pretty much myself in a labor, doing most of the majority of the work. And I've gotten a lot more comfortable, but now it seems like things are starting to go back to where I'm growing again, which is a good thing. But it's all in the hiring process is very difficult. It's very difficult to find people today.
Yeah.
I mean, because another thing too that affects it is who wants to come to work, who wants to come to work, get sweaty, dirty, muddy, and then when you turn around and look, you got people like Chick-fil-A, 7-Eleven, Sheets. They're paying 16, $18 an hour. Who
Mm-hmm.
wants to come work for me for 16, $18 an hour when they can work in an air conditioning building, and things like that. So it makes it difficult. It is definitely a challenge.
You gotta start going over to maybe like gyms or something and be like, hey, come on over, get your workout here and get paid.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not always the case,
Yeah.
but it's
Especially
definitely a challenge.
work with that, you gotta love what you do.
I do. I love it. The biggest thing that I love about what I do is I love meeting and talking with people. I remember when I first went into business, I remember walking up to my first customer, and remember this to the day. It was like getting married. When I first got married, standing there at the altar, sweat beads just rolling off your head, and I was like, that was my first customer. And I since then I've calmed down and I get comfortable.
Mhm.
It's like sitting down here. This is my first time ever doing anything like this.
Mhm.
And I'm sweating now. I was a little nervous in the beginning, but once I get going, I feel pretty comfortable about everything. And the biggest thing I love about my job is meeting people, because I meet all walks of life from everywhere, and there's a lot of good people out here in this world.
Mhm. That's what I learned over working at the BBB is it really is about the people that you talk to and you
Yeah.
connect to, and that's what's going to make, you know,
Yeah.
the impressions and just the relationships that you
Yeah.
have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is your oldest house that you've worked on? Or maybe just the most memorable
Wow.
house?
Um, I've worked on some old homes from the late 1800s. Yes. The one that I remember the most is there was a home located down on West Main Street across from Sticky Rice. And it was a homeowner that owned a home, and they came to me and asked about restoring it. And the house was in the early 1900s. Well, we ended up setting scaffold around the entire house and refurbishing, repointing the entire home. And it required filling in some openings that they wanted filled in with historic brick. And those jobs require special types of mortar. When you're dealing with historic brick and historic homes, there's a difference between today's conventional mortar and the mortar that they used back at that time period. And that mortar is lime mortar. That mortar, we took samples of it and we send it off so they could go through it and see what all was in it. Because back in that time period, there was seashells, there was all kinds of stuff mixed in with the mortar, and as well as they color matched it as well. So we had to send that off to a company in Lynchburg called Virginia Lime Works, and they matched the mortar and put the mortar together for the job. But yeah, it was quite an interesting project.
Do you have in your head maybe like just a timeline of how long something like that can stay until it starts to, erode or like start getting,
Well, you got to look at these homes, like that home there was over 100 years old.
yeah.
So these, done properly, done correctly, yes, these homes can last another 100 years very easily.
Mhm.
Those homes are way better built than the homes today.
Mhm.
The lumber is different, everything about the home is different. Back then, the homes didn't have stud walls in them, they just had wood lath with sheathing, and then not drywall, but I can't think of the name of it. Not stucco, but it's another form of drywall
Okay.
that's put on the wall. But it was done with metal lath and wood slats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you see when you go into a house that you can tell that might need some fixing in the future? Or like what are some signs for a consumer to kind of look at in the right
Yes.
time?
A lot of times, a lot of homeowners don't know. Homeowner will say, "Hey, we got a crack above our window. We'd like to get it repointed." And I would get out there to the project and look at the project, and they definitely need to have it repointed, but they don't realize that the steel angle that's above the window is corroding and rusting. And what it does is it's lifting the brickwork up on each side of the window. Well, they think it just needs repointed. Well, in fact, the steel itself is corroding, and as it corrodes, it expands and it actually lifts the brickwork up, making it look like it just a stair step crack, when in fact, that steel lintel has to be removed and replaced using a hot dip galvanized angle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hot dip galvanized angle.
Yes. And the reason they're hot dip galvanized is so they don't corrode or rust. Back in the day, they were just prime coated pieces of steel. Whereas today, most steel angles put above doors and windows are hot dip galvanized.
Interesting.
Yes.
So how can people get in contact with you?
They can reach me by phone, by email.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your phone number?
My phone number is 804-922-7377. When you find my business online, they'll also find another number there, which is associated with my website. And I don't know that exact number. It's an 804-518 number,
Okay.
but they can also reach me at masonry.net. They go to my website. There's actually a form there they can fill out, and it will send a form to me with their name, their address, and a description of what type of work they're looking to have done.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me. It was nice to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have any other last words you wanted to tell anybody?
Not that I can think of.
No worries. Well, everybody listening, thank you guys for joining. Make sure to follow us, Instagram, Facebook, BBB Serving Central VA. Make sure that you can see all these all these podcasts on Spotify and on YouTube. You guys have a good rest of your day.
Ignite, sparked by BBB, where conversations are taking place to change the future.